morning. Good morning and welcome to the Ventura Center for Spiritual Living. I'm Reverend Bonnie Rose. It's great to see you here this morning. Let's start our Sunday celebration by standing up and singing together. And so let us continue to breathe deeply, letting go, allowing ourselves to be here, fully present, as we listen to the words of our sacred reading.
An excerpt from The Surrender Experiment by Michael A. Singer. The flow of life is like sandpaper that frees me from myself. Unable to unbind myself from the incessant pull of my psyche, I throw myself into the arms of life. Then I do my very best to serve what is put in front of me and let go of what is stirred up within me. Joy and pain, success and failure, praise and blame, they all pull at what is so deeply rooted within me. The more I let go, the freer I become. It is not my responsibility to find what binds me. That is life's job. My responsibility is to willingly let go of whatever is brought up within me. Each twist and turn that life offers me reaches deep inside and forces me past foundational fears and personal boundaries. As long as I am willing to accept the purifying power of life's flow, I keep on transforming. Life is perfectly designed for my personal awakening. I cannot consider anything a bad experience, for everything creates beauty and freedom within me. And so it is.
And so it is. So trusting in that, knowing that life is designed perfectly, and that life is here to awaken us, to bring us forth, to open the heart. Let us know that a name for God is I am, and that as we sing together, I am, remembering who I am, we remember the truth about our existence, that we are love, that we are the life of God, that we are life expressing. And let us sing together now. And resting in the remembrance of this bold inner stillness that is always with us. Let us breathe in deeply. And then exhale, opening our eyes in love with what is, as it is, and so it is.
Reach out and touch a soul that is hungry. Reach out and touch a spirit in despair. Reach out and touch a life torn and dirty, a man who is lonely. If you can, reach out and touch a neighbor who hates you. Reach out and touch a stranger who meets you. Reach out and touch a brother that needs you. Reach out. And let the smile of God shine through you.
Thank you. What did you say your name was again? No. Fred. So it's really good to see you all here today. It's been quite an odd year, hasn't it? Is it just me? It's been lots of upheaval happening. But according to this book, the Surrender Experiment, and according to the reading that Hugh did, everything happens for a reason, and everything happens to help us evolve into the people that we are meant to be. In fact, into the people that we already are. We are divine love in a human form. And have you noticed that sometimes that divine love is covered up by a bunch of stuff like grumpiness or impatience or cursing? That was just me on the way to church this morning. Something has to shift, something has to happen so that stuff comes up so that it can be revealed. And as it said in the reading, that life is like sandpaper. That life is like the ocean when it tumbles a piece of broken glass. You know, we may start out as a piece of broken glass, but if we're tumbled by the ocean, eventually we get our edges smoothed out and we're a beautiful piece of sea glass. It's one of the major points in this book. This book, The Surrender Experiment, reminded me of a story that I had read a long time ago. Many of you know that I used to be a professional singer, and I've done a lot of Handel's Messiah. Am I getting a buzz? Am I having feedback? Is there anything we can do about that? Okay. This side says yes, that side says no, so maybe it's coming out of that speaker. I'll stand over here. Am I getting a buzz? Definitely not during church, but no, I'm on a spiritual high. Okay. Where was I? Handel's Messiah. So there's this part of Handel's Messiah that says, "For he is like a refiner's fire. For God is like a refiner's fire." And in this teaching, we would probably say reality is like a refiner's fire. Love is like a refiner's fire. And there's a story about a group of women that were studying that verse in the Bible. It's from the book of Malachi, and it says, "God shall sit as a refiner and purifier of silver." And so they wanted to know what that verse meant, so they decided to go and see a silversmith and see what that really meant. They went to the silversmith's workshop, and they watched him work, and he explained several important things to them. First of all, he said, when you put the silver in the fire, it has to go into the hottest part of the fire. That's the only way all of the impurities are going to rise up and be cleansed. The other thing is that even though the silver is in the hottest part of the fire, the silversmith never takes his eyes off of that silver. And then one of the women asked him, "How do you know when the silver is complete, when it's completely pure?" And he said, "That's easy. It is pure when I can see my face in it." You get the metaphor, right? Good. Good, because sometimes life seems like it's holding us in the fire, in the tension, in the drama, in the things that we wish were not happening. But we have to know also that life never takes its eyes off of us. It is impossible for life to stop seeing us and holding us and loving us. And how do we know when we are completely through the fire and that our experience has purified us? It's like it says in the 5 Gifts teaching, in the 5 Gifts class. How do you know when forgiveness is complete? When you can give thanks for the person who did you wrong. And we know that our purity is well established and rising to the surface when we see the face of God in everything that happens to us. And so often we don't, right? We might eventually, but we go through that phase of complaining and slapping and struggling and just choking reality, trying to make it be our way. We don't see the face of God in it. We think that there's something wrong with reality. Or another popular choice is to think that there's something wrong with us. If I had done my spiritual mind treatment correctly, this would not be happening to me. I better go see a better practitioner. Right? Anybody? If I was a better person, this wouldn't be happening to me. If I had prayed enough, if God really liked me, this wouldn't be happening to me. Maybe it is happening to you because it is exactly what you need in order to grow into that divine being that you already are. The whole world, however, thinks the opposite of that. And we are caught in that, what Ernest Holmes called race consciousness, the belief of the human race. The whole world seems to think that life can be against us, when really it cannot. And it's not like we on purpose think that, it's just that we're lulled into a sense of complacency about what life really is. We're lulled into believing that life can be against us, or we're lulled into believing that we can be separate from God. One of our practitioners, Peter, told us this story in a class that we taught at one point this past year. And he talked about a chef in New Orleans that was learning to make frog leg soup. And according to this chef, I apologize for any frog lovers, by the way, and for animal lovers. According to this chef, the first thing he had to do was heat up a pot of water to boiling and then throw the live frogs in it. Now, the frogs hit the hot water, and they said, "Whoa, I'm not staying in here." And they jumped out, and they leapt out the window and hopped away to a nearby lake where it was nice and cool. So then the chef had another idea. The chef got a pot of water that was lake temperature, nice and cool and nice and soothing. And he put some live frogs in that. And the frogs said, "Oh, wow, indoor swimming pool. This is pretty cool." They're doing the backstroke, and they're swimming, and they're having a great time. And then he turned up the heat just a tiny bit. The frog said, "Well, yeah, it's a little warmer, but it's okay." And then a little bit more. "Oh, it's a little warmer, but it's okay." And more, and more, and more, and more, until the frogs finally were lulled into submission, and they were cooked. I know. It's not a pretty picture, right? It's not a pretty picture, but it's the metaphor for this is that it's kind of like the way we are with reality. How many of us believe in scarcity and are lulled into this belief of feeling that there is never enough, that there is not enough for us? How many of us are lulled into the belief of thinking that we have to somehow be more in order to be acceptable? The heat keeps getting turned up, and we keep getting lulled into that false belief that we need to be more. How many of us are lulled into a false belief of separation from God or separation from good, or that this good is outside my realm of experience? You know, and I was thinking yesterday as I was meditating on this message about what really is the soup that we are swimming in, the soup that lulls us into complacency and into submission. And I would say, and I think Ernest Holmes would say, that the soup is ignorance and distrust. Not ignorance like we're stupid or that we just haven't learned. We haven't learned what life really is. You know? And distrust because we believe that life can be against us. Now, the key is, I think, is to notice that we're all in the soup and we're all in it together, but we can change the soup. The soup is a function of our mind, right? Because right here where there is ignorance and distrust, just a tiny little shift in perception moves us into a place where there is great knowing and great wisdom and great compassion and great honor and great trust in recognizing that life is always for us. It takes a tiny shift in perception, but when the rest of the world is thinking otherwise, it can feel like a radical shift, can't it? And isn't there a place in your life where you're feeling stuck? And wouldn't it be so easy and hard at the same time to make just that little tiny shift in perception that says, well, this thing feels like it's against me, or I feel like I'm against myself here, or this thing is not what I want. What if I were just to surrender and say, this is for my good? I got a few of those that some I'm like, sure, this is for my good. Some of them are like, are you kidding me? I'm supposed to accept that? I'm supposed to be at peace with that? Well, let me tell you a story about how radical it can get. This is a story from Pavi Mehta, who is, if you were here last week, Nipun Mehta spoke, and Pavi Mehta is his sister-in-law. And Pavi tells this true story about someone that she knew named Julio Diaz. And I'm going to embellish it a little bit because I like to think of it in pictures. But anyway, Julio was walking down the street one night. He had just finished his waiter job, and it was late at night, and he was in New York City. And I like to visualize him, say, on, 47th and Amsterdam. Does that mean anything to anybody? Okay, 47th and Amsterdam. Not the greatest section of town, but not a horrible section of town. And all of a sudden, a man lurking in the shadows leapt out at him and pulled a knife on him and said, "Give me your wallet." And so Julio, of course, as we've all been trained to do, gave the man his wallet. The man took the wallet and turned to run away, and Julio said, wait a minute. It's a cold night tonight, and if you're going to be busy robbing people all night long, you'll need my coat too. And so Julio took off his coat and gave it to the robber. And the robber, in putting on the coat, Julio noticed that he looked like he might be hungry. So he said to the robber, "How about I take you to a diner, and I'll get you some food?" And so the two of them, without speaking, hardly at all, went to a diner, sat down, ordered their food, ate it, and then the waitress brought the check. And Julio said, "I would love to treat you to dinner. However, you have my wallet. Would you consider giving it back to me? And while you're at it, maybe you could give me that knife too." And with that, Julio gave him the wallet, and he gently pushed the knife across the table. The man gave Julio the wallet and pushed the knife across the table. So that's about as radical as it gets. I'm not sure that I'm there yet in my consciousness. I'm not seeing that for myself in my near future, but it could happen. And one of the things that I want to say about this, all of the stuff that we teach in this spiritual center, is that it's not a rubber stamp. It's like, okay, Reverend Bonnie said, if somebody robs me, I need to give them my coat and my shoes and my wallet and anything they want. I have to take them to dinner. No, it's not that at all. It's about understanding these general principles. And the general principle there is non-resistance, and then looking within and saying, what is my most authentic practice of non-resistance in this moment? In this moment where I'm feeling incredibly resistant, how can I authentically shift just a small way towards non-resistance? That's what it is. And you know what? The big stuff, like giving your coat to a robber and buying him dinner, that seems really radical. But the small stuff is just as radical in its own way. It's radical because there's a part of us that is still swimming in that soup of fear and ignorance that thinks that we have to make huge sweeping gestures in order to change our lives, in order to change the world. But the radical notion of doing small, tiny, almost immeasurable acts of kindness and goodness and shifting towards that place where we are in deeper surrender to what life is teaching us, that is radical in its smallness. You get that? Even if you make a very tiny gesture, a very tiny shift in consciousness, a very tiny step into greater surrender and greater acceptance of what life is offering you. Showing up and serving life and releasing what it is life is calling upon you to release, that is a huge step in the mind of God, because there is no big or small in the mind of God. There is no up in infinity, there is no down in infinity, there is no large in infinity, there is no small in infinity, right? So this is to encourage you to say, don't be afraid to take little steps. Little steps are important. Little steps are valuable. Little steps are mighty. I'll tell you about a little step that I took. So, for probably about the past year or so, I've been, when we do the closing prayer after the message, I bless all paths to God. And then about a year ago, I started blessing atheists and fundamentalists. And it just flew out of my mouth one Sunday, and I didn't know. It's like, who said that? Where'd that come from? Just flew out of my mouth. But I liked it, and it felt important, so I decided to keep it in the prayer when I remember, which is most of the time, to bless atheists and fundamentalists. So because I've been blessing atheists and fundamentalists for a year now, I think the universe decided to see if I meant it. I had the opportunity recently to spend some time with someone who is a fundamentalist Christian. And it's someone that I have a history with. And I was anticipating that it might be a bit of a struggle, that there might be some opportunities to practice. And because I was anticipating this, I decided to bone up on my non-resistance and my surrender. And I came across this practice that I learned also from Nipun, that when you're in a conversation and somebody says something that makes you uncomfortable, a really helpful technique is to absolutely own the discomfort, sit in the discomfort, know that actually that person is not making you uncomfortable, that the discomfort is coming from you, to sit in that discomfort and do not answer until the discomfort dissipates. I was like, well, I'm going to be mute the whole time, But as it turned out, there were only a few sort of landmines that got started. I don't believe in evolution. That was one that sort of, I was like, sit in the discomfort. There's only one true path to God. Okay. So the Bible should always be taken literally. I couldn't even get that one out. Okay, sit in the discomfort. And what I found is that sitting in the discomfort was really powerful. It's a very loving thing to do. It's very compassionate. And I recognize that this person was with absolutely needs those beliefs that she has, and that they are perfect for her. And oddly, without my answering, everything was fine. The subject got changed. We started talking about shoes and toenail polish and all kinds of things. And in the past I would have felt, well, I have to be honest. I have to express my beliefs out loud. Sometimes, if she had said something that seemed like it was about injustice, if she had said unkind things about gay people, I probably would have said something. But evolution, the Bible being taken literally, I can live with people who believe that. And it's kind of like with what Nipun said last week about how there's so much againstness in activism, where there is instead this consciousness of giftivism, where we are giving space to the other person, and ultimately they give space to us, and there is this beautiful blending of hearts and minds and beings. It's Rumi's field. It's that place, that field beyond right doing and wrong doing and opinion, that place where the world is too full to talk about, right? Now, ironically, as I was writing this, or contemplating this part of the message about being willing to sit with the discomfort and bless fundamentalists and atheists and allow that to be, it was yesterday afternoon, and guess who rang my doorbell? And I know I don't know if it was my most embarrassing talk here, because I've said some pretty out there things, but I remember one time feeling so embarrassed that I confessed to the congregation that when the proselytizers came to my door, and I went out there and I had such disdain and scorn for them, and I was really irked because they got my dogs all riled up and I was trying to work, but I just did not treat them in a kind manner a while ago. And yesterday, I think because of this experience, was a totally different interaction. I went out there, I pointed to my sign, I said, "It says no soliciting." And they said, "Well, we're not really selling anything." And I said, "Well, I see your Bible, and I just want to let you know that my husband and I, we have a religion, we've got a good relationship with God, and we're good to go." In my mind, I heard them say, "Good to go to hell," but See, I can't help. I have to say something a little edgy. You know, I'm not totally into this blessing the fundamentalists yet, but I'm getting there. I'm making progress. I'm on a path like everybody else. But I left that interaction. The other time that I told you about where I was disdainful and scornful and rude to the people who were knocking on my door, I felt so self-righteous, like I had a right to be rude to them, and I left that interaction just feeling dirty, feeling unclean, feeling like I had done something that was out of alignment with who I really want to be. I left this interaction with joy and feeling like I had made 2 new friends that perhaps I will never see again, but I felt that connection of the heart. So it can be as small as that. 4-second, 10-second exchange where you get to just be with your own discomfort and see what is coming up for you and allow that refiner's fire to hold you in the heat and then show up and serve life with the values that you have and then just release whatever needs to be released in whatever way is unique and authentic for you. I really recommend practicing surrender in one form or another. If you want to read the book, it's a really good book. Really, all the book is, it's one story of, well, this thing happened and I was really opposed to it, but then I decided to surrender and look what happened. Something great happened. I grew. And then this thing happened and I was really opposed to it. And then look, I surrendered and then this happened and I grew. You know, it's one story after another of that. I need to read it like 3 times because I need, just need to catch that on. But it's really, I think it's really important for all of us to practice the principles of surrender and letting go and recognizing that we are here to serve life. And that as we serve life, things that are not serving us are released. You're going to need it someday. You're going to need these skills someday. And most certainly, you're going to need it in that thing that we're all avoiding and sometimes not thinking about or talking about, and that is our final surrender, which is death. As you know, I witnessed the passing. I wasn't there at the time she passed, but I witnessed the transition, because death is a transition. It's one step after another of one of our beloved center members this week. And I have to say that it was so easy to be around her because she was handling it all with such grace and such surrender and such beauty. And because it's inevitable, it's going to happen for all of us. Notice I didn't say it's going to happen to all of us. It's going to happen for all of us because I believe that death is crossing a threshold into a life that is magnificent, even more magnificent than this one. What if we could really, really live before we die? What if we could practice that surrender and open up that doorway to that incredible magnificence that is longing to be born in us, to be refined through the fire of life? What if we could stop being that piece of broken glass and become that beautiful, beautiful crystallized piece of sea glass that is a blessing to the world? It is so within our reach. It is so possible. All it takes is a tiny shift in consciousness and doing it over and over again. You ever go on a diet and say, well, I ate, I had 1,200 calories today. Okay, good, I'm done, right? It's the same thing as like going on a diet or trying to exercise. You just have to keep doing it over and over again. And it's beautiful. It is beautiful. We are on a pilgrimage here. We are on a pilgrimage of awakening. We are on a pilgrimage of opening our hearts to see the beauty of everything that is, to see the face of God in everything. And so I started this morning by speaking about the refiner's fire and how you know that the silver is purified when the silversmith can see the face in it. We know that we are purified when we see the face of God in everything. And there's one face I really want you to remember to see the face of God in. And that is the face that you see in the mirror. That beautiful face that thinks it's you, but it's not really you. The you that you are is the light. It is what you are looking with. So look upon your eyes and see your face and see the face of God, see the purity, see the intention in all of its perfections, in all of its imperfections, and serve that life within you. Not because it is broken, but because it is holy. Let's do that now. Let us pray. Thank you. Thank you. So I turn within and rest in that presence as that presence, knowing truly that there is only one perfect life, the life of God. And in this moment, I surrender everything that feels like it gets in the way of my experience of that life of God. My judgment, my controlling, my seeking for approval, and just, if I can, just breathe into that being right here and right now, and just for an instant know who I am. And as I say I am speaking of all of us, for there is one of us here named the I Am Presence, one of us here on the planet Earth. And so I know in this sacred moment that I am immortal, that I am joy, that I am peace, that I am wholeness, that I am in the refiner's fire, whether I am or not, and that beauty is emerging through everything in my life. I am willing to see this. I move out of ignorance and distrust and absolutely know that life is for me. I also have confidence, for confidence is with God. I have confidence to know that my small steps are powerful, and that everything I do with right intention and right heart and right mind and right being, and honestly, everything I don't do, it's all conspiring in this beautiful mosaic to create a field of dreams, a path of goodness. It is all God unfolding as my very life, and so I get to enjoy it. How good it is to speak these words and to know these words, to hear them, to resonate with them, to struggle with them, to wrestle with them, to let them go, to believe them, to not believe them, to absolutely trust that we are all led here with our own perfect path, and that we get to be on that path. But how beautiful it is to be on that path together in this moment. I bless this spiritual teaching. I bless all paths to God, churches, synagogues, temples, mosques, ashrams. I bless fundamentalists and atheists, for everyone is a blessing. I give thanks for the healing and the transformation that I know, for the wholeness that has been revealed through our spiritual work together this morning. And with a heart filled with gratitude, I say, thank you, Spirit, thank you, God, and I release these words into the mystery, and together we say, and so it is.